Re:Zero, Arc 7, Chapter 65, The School Food Fighter.
Tanza, Chaos Flame has been destroyed by a very big disaster. The evacuation of the residents should have been completed by Yorna Summer, but as for anything further than that, the ends of her gentle eyebrows lowered, with downcast eyes, the girl's voice was full of sadness. He had always thought of her as a child who did not reveal many emotions. In fact, even now her expression could not quite be called one of sadness. However, he believed that anyone who did not consider this as sadness was an idiot. Subaru was not very smart, but he did not want to continue being an idiot. Therefore, he decided to seriously accept what Tanza had said, and sympathize with her pain. However, Cecilus, a disaster that would destroy the demon city is quite the big deal, isn't it? While I'm locked up on an island like this, the world is going through loads of crazy developments. Goodness, I'll need to keep this in mind so that I don't get an unnecessary late start. Subaru, Ceci, can you shut up for a second? Cecilus, Did I do something wrong again? The personage who completely disregarded Subaru's heart and Tanza's heartache as he proceeded to talk, the fake Cecilus received a stare as he tilted his head to the side with a confused look on his face. Even before and after the sparker, he was amazed and astonished and amazed by that attitude which never changed no matter what. This was compounded when he thought of the dozens of times he had tried to cold-heartedly listen to Subaru's final request. Subaru, despite that, it would have been hopeless had Ceci not woken up Tanza at the end. Cecilus, there's no need to feel indebted over that. The moment you cornered it that far, it was Basu's victory. The final push was something like a bonus. Besides, it was a gamble whether this girl would wake up or not. Tanza, I apologize for worrying you. The fake Cecilus was immodestly humble to the bitter-looking Subaru. Hearing that, Tanza slightly bowed her head, and beside her, the one she had saved, Subaru, was at a loss for words. Subaru was able to surmount Sparker, the dangerous welcoming ceremony of the Gladiator Island. After continuously repeating that distant-feeling challenge, somehow or another, Subaru and his team gained victory by cutting off the lion's head, but he was obliged to say that it would have been difficult without the cooperation of Tanza and the fake Cecilus. Had the fake Cecilus not woken up Tanza at the end, and had Tanza not lopped off the lion's head with the sword that was stuck in its neck, Subaru, I don't know how many more times we would have failed. Of course, there was no option to give up, because it was a constant struggle that they could not stop until they succeeded. Even so, whether or not they had the willpower to do so would have greatly influenced the outcome, and it was quite possible that, if the situation arose, they might not have all survived. Had it turned out that way, he would have regretted it forever. Subaru, Whites, Hyan, and Idra, they all persevered together. It was very hard to cooperate together, but they would not have survived had even one of them been missing. The fact that all of them survived was the best-case scenario for Subaru. It was a great confidence boost for him to have been able to do something typical of a leader. With this, he had the confidence to proudly say he was the son of Natsuki Kenichi. Tanza, Schwartz Summer, Subaru, oh, sorry, I got lost in my thoughts for a bit. So about Chaos Flame, Tanza. Yes. If I could get back as soon as possible to help with the reconstruction. Subaru, yeah, that's right. I also wanna get back and reunite with everyone. Returning to the original topic, with her face downcast, Tanza looked very pitiful. It was natural for Subaru to worry about his family and his hometown, so he felt the same way. Even more so when Subaru heard about the trouble Chaos Flame had gone through without him knowing. He was worried about whether or not everyone he was separated from, especially Louis, were found by the unkind Abel. He thought if Yorna was with her, though she would surely be protecting Louis. Tanza, the forlorn Tanza, was now back in the kimono outfit that he had seen in the Demon City as well. Subaru had slept for a whole day after the sparker was over, according to what he was told. When he woke up in the healing room, he was told by a toothless old man who claimed to be a healer that there was nothing wrong with his physical health, but mentally, he would feel drained and heavy. However, he could not afford to calmly be at a loss. Subaru, what about the other three? Whites and the others? Has everyone already woken up? Tanza, Each of those three have already woken up and returned to their room. It seems that they are all sharing a room. Schwartz Summer and I are also sharing a room, as well as Cecilus. Yes, that would be me. You see, it's the room Basu first woke up in, but that's where our bedroom is going to be. I'm also glad that people that can share a room with me finally came. Well, rather than saying that you came here, it's more like I pulled you up here by myself. Tanza, pulled up. Subaru, don't worry about it too much. It's just a tale of me and Tanza falling in the lake after all. Come to think of it, he had a faint memory of swimming frantically and trying not to drown. Whether he swam through in just one go, or drowned several times was quite vague, but it was not that important, so thinking about it would be futile. Anyway, he was relieved after hearing that the other three were also safe. Although it was unavoidable, he had learned a lot about their various circumstances in the midst of the Sparker event. A coward, a scaredy cat and a fraud. Though not very commendable personalities, they too had their reasons for being cowardly, timid, and fraudulent. Subaru, yes, it's just like I'm Superman A. Cecilus, oh my, your face sure is overflowing with an exceeding confidence. I think it even raises your manliness level and gives it a pleasant feeling. To be so swept up in the situation that you worry about this, and that is a behavior of a minor actor or a member of the masses. Basu needs to stand tall. Subaru, I don't plan on going along with Ceci's narrative-driven mind, but I think so too. In the first place, it was not good to dwell on things too much, though for some reason, Subaru up to now had been far too passive regarding many things. No matter what, taking a passive response would just cause the opponent to get overconfident. Whether it be a hated opponent, or fate itself, it was the same. And recently, fate has been getting a little too cocky. Subaru, from now on, I'll be more proactive in moving towards achieving my goals with avarice. For now, Subaru's goal was to escape the island, escape the Gladiator Island, and return to Chaos Flame together with Tanza. Of course, the ultimate goal was to leave the Empire and return to where everyone in the kingdom is. However, Subaru, you'll fall if you're preoccupied with big goals after all. Even for summer homework, you have to finish them one at a time. You can't write a whole diary all at once. As you could see, Subaru was the type of person who diligently did his homework during summer and winter vacations. Sometimes there were classmates who came to school after the vacations without having done their homework, but he never fully understood the nerve they had nor what they were thinking to pull that off, though somehow, feeling like he had lost in terms of the idea and courage was a bit frustrating. Subaru, but I did the homework, so I'm the superior one. Tanza, then, Schwartz Summer, may I have a moment? Subaru, yeah? Tanza timidly called out to Subaru, who had placed his hand on his chin, watering himself with self-esteem. Directing Subaru's gaze to herself, she indicated with her hand at the fake Cecilus beside her. And, sitting on the bed, watching as he dangled his legs with a carefree look on his face, Tanza, this one here is an ally but… Cecilus segment Summer is, Subaru, yeah, he's the boy who cried wolf that keeps insisting on that. Cecilus, haha, they do say I am insistent, you know. And what do you mean by boy who cried wolf? If it means I'm a werewolf, could you please stop with that bad-mouthing? Sure, I may say some incomprehensible things, but it's only enough to make me dangerously attractive, right? Subaru, sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. Showered by questions, Subaru spontaneously let that slip, and clutched his own chest. When he closed his eyes, he could recall the face of a lovely little girl, and along with that, the faces of everyone who was precious to him. Still, he was certainly aware that his recollection was stiffening up. This situation cannot continue for much longer. Subaru, aside from Ceci's flippant comments, what has gotten you so worried, Tanza? A general of the Empire and a celebrity, is it any wonder that there might be a kid with the nerve to pose as him? Tanza, that may be so, but, well, I had seen Cecilus Summer once before, and I thought he looked a lot like him. Subaru, in the past, you've seen him? Ceci? Tanza, I have seen Cecilus segment Summer. He was once sent in to assassinate Yorna Summer. Tanza explained that she only saw the real Cecilus. Hearing this recollection, Subaru also recalled the story he had heard before. As he recalled it, Yorna often rebelled against the emperor, and so time and time again a suppression force was sent in. However, now that he knew about Yorna's personality, from Subaru's perspective, that became quite an unexpected impression. Subaru, to try to kill Yorna-san, he must have been a really terrible guy. Tanza, that is correct. Cecilus Summer is an atrocious fiend. No, that is not what is important. I am just curious about the fact that although this Cecilus Summer here and that Cecilus Summer have an age difference, they are like two peas in a pod. Subaru, exactly alike, with an age difference? Tanza, yes. Perhaps he is a sibling of Cecilus Summer, that Cecilus and this fake Cecilus. At Tanza's story, who had seen both Ceciluses, Subaru fixedly stared at this fake Cecilus. He had not considered that possibility. Or rather, it was natural that he had not considered it. Subaru did not know the real Cecilus, so he could not judge whether they were similar or not. However, it was fortunate that he had a partner who knew the real one. Giving up, the lying fake Cecilus submissively admitted to the lies he himself had told. Cecilus, no, that's not correct. I'm an only child, so I don't have a sibling who is exactly alike. Of course, it's possible that my dad made a younger brother after we separated, but if we're going by the current flow of the conversation, then it would be about my older brother, wouldn't it? Subaru, that's right, but you don't know when to give up, do you? Cecilus, how very upsetting. But there's a basis for it, you know. Even if I had an older brother or had a younger brother, both would be on an unusual basis. The fake Cecilus crossed his arms and leaned back as Subaru and Tanza fixedly stared at him. The basis for the fake Cecilus's offended face, just how persuasive could it be? For now, in response to Subaru and Tanza, who were eager to listen, appealing with their eyes, Cecilus, the basis is simple, my existence. Subaru, what do you mean? Cecilus, if I had an older brother, then my dad would have killed him when he had me. And if I had a younger brother, then it would be strange if my father didn't kill me. In other words, when I'm alive, there's no way that my older or younger brother could exist. How's that? Subaru, what do you mean? It was a theory that did not make sense to him at all, even though he said it with the vigor of a QED. By his description, it sounded like the father of the fake Cecilus was under some kind of curse to not have more than one child. Whether that was true or false, he felt like a guy who would rather stick to the curse. As for Subaru, he would like to think that the liar fake Cecilus had piled more lies upon lies. However, Subaru, with him being so brazen about it until now, I'm starting to feel like it's true. What do you think, Tanza? Tanza, I would like to be in accordance with Schwartz Summer's notion. Subaru, that's a serious responsibility. Being relied upon by the reserved Tanza, Subaru put a slender finger to his small chin and pondered. The fake Cecilus tilted his head as if to say, I wonder why can't you understand me? If you were to ask him about what his family environment was like, it seems that answer would not come out. The only thing that mattered here was whether you believed the fake Cecilus or not. If they didn't believe him, it would be the same as it has thus far. They would just treat the fake Cecilus as a mere boy who cried wolf. But if they were to believe him, that the fake Cecilus had no siblings, that only left Tanza's testimony that the fake Cecilus and the real Cecilus she spoke of were very similar, and if you believed that testimony and the fake Cecilus's self-awareness exactly. Subaru, I'm afraid to ask this, Ceci, but maybe your body has shrunk. It was a possibility he wanted to deny if he could, but it was a possibility he could not afford to ignore. If it had been a pre-shrunken, grown-up Subaru that was here, he might have hesitated to ask many questions after having put on airs. However, since the Subaru here was a post-shrunken, underdeveloped Subaru, he was not suited to harbor his questions for a long time. Sometimes he would carelessly ask questions with the intention of apologizing if he offended them by asking. At that specific question, the fake Cecilus slightly widened his eyes in surprise. Cecilus, are you saying I've shrunken? Haha. You sure say some interesting things, Basu. If there was such an interesting thing as the human body shrinking, wouldn't that be super fun? Laughing hysterically, the fake Cecilus pat Subaru on the shoulder in a good mood as he said that to him. Subaru was very much lost in his remarks as he frowned. Subaru, just which one is it? Was he playing dumb or not? And if he was playing dumb, was he doing it consciously or unconsciously? Subaru himself felt that his memories were falling out in large drops due to effects of infantilization, so it was possible that the fake Cecilus had forgotten all sorts of things for the same reason. But when compared to Subaru, who still remembered many things, the fake Cecilus had even forgotten that he had been shrunken. Was such a thing even possible? If the fake Cecilus had been infantilized the same way Subaru had, was this fake Cecilus's state of mind how Subaru would end up? Subaru, that shitty old man. I mean, did Ceci also get smaller because of Olbart-san? If that was the case, then that would be a major incident. It would become a major incident among the 9 divine generals. The fact that this was also the work of Olbart was a situation that he did not want to think about. But then again, he also did not want to think that anyone other than Olbart was capable of such an absurd technique. Naturally, one was tempted to think that Olbart was also the one who made the fake Cecilus smaller. Subaru, wait. In other words, Ceci isn't fake but real, so Mr. Olbart was the one who made the real Ceci smaller, and Ceci is like the final ruin of what I will become? Tanza, S. Schwartz-Summer, are you all right? You seem to be quite confused. Subaru, I'm fine. I'm incredibly confused, but it's all coming together incredibly nicely. The situation was narrowed down to approximately 2 possibilities in Subaru's mind, although it may sound rather disorganized to hear only the thoughts that leaked out of his mouth. One was that the fake Cecilus was an infantilized version of the real Cecilus segment, dubbed the shitty old man Olbart theory, and the other was that using the grounds of resembling the appearance of the real Cecilus, he was true to his nature as a boy who cried wolf, and sublimated a lie, the shitty brat fake Cecilus theory. Subaru, the shitty brat and the shitty old man, let's keep both of them in the back of our minds as we strategize. Cecilus, ho, that way that sounds is somewhat interesting. May I ask you to tell me more about it? Subaru, not a chance. I don't think it would make sense to talk to you about it, Ceci. Cecilus, haha. What a cold attitude. That's a rather self-centered thought, but I'm not against that direction. In fact, I rather like it. Rather than being angry at the cruelty, the fake Cecilus provisionally, but still the fake Cecilus, that reaction of his was helpful in many ways. There were already so many things to worry about, so it was valuable to have someone that he did not have to worry about. Subaru, for the time being, Tanza, you should also shelve everything about Ceci. Because whether he is real or fake, the fact that he is unreliable won't change. Tanza, yes, that is right. Since he is the one who tried to cause harm to Yorna-sama, I personally hold no favorable impressions towards him. Subaru, thank you for being straightforward and honest. Now, having thus reached some sort of conclusion, Subaru switched gears. Now that they were awake, they were also done occupying the beds in the healing room. They would be heading to the room that Tanza was talking about earlier, the room that was assigned to these 3. But, before that, Subaru, I'd like to feed my very empty stomach. You see, my stomach has been miserably whining for a while now. So, rubbing his belly, on the island he was imprisoned on, Subaru made a shameless demand. There was a saying that went, you can't fight a war on an empty stomach. Beyond this point, the obstacles which Subaru and his unit would face would all be in the vein of battles. In order to fight them, Subaru's group must be in perfect physical and mental condition, or else if they were unable to act when push comes to shove, they would be in trouble. To operate without sparing time for sleep, one should avoid making such a decision so rashly. Subaru, it seems to me that before I shrank, since I had more physical strength than I do now, I used to do those kinds of rash things often. If you misunderstand that, you may get some pushback. Such being the case, they wanted to treasure all the eating and sleeping time they could get. Somehow, it seemed that due to fatigue from Sparker, he had slept for a whole day. He accepted that as a sufficient rest, and now intended to find a chance to regain his physical strength. Hence, now that it was time to eat, the fake Cecilus guided them towards the meal. Whites, eat, Schwartz, this is your share. With a thud, a large platter was placed before his eyes, and Subaru stared in wonder at the sight of the meat on the bone served on that platter. When Subaru looked up to see what was going on, the man's tattoo-riddled face raised his brow as if to say what? Even if he was making that face, Subaru was actually the one who wanted to say what? What exactly was he supposed to do when they did this to him without any explanation? Idra, Whites, no matter how you look at it, I don't think that's going to happen. Look, Schwartz is frozen stiff. Hyun, are you trying to say that we ain't got anything to worry about, huh? To begin with, there's no need to pile up a mountain of meat for this midget. We'll split it between us. Oh, Whites, it's a share we talked about. And if you're gonna distort that, why don't you try and convince me? As he said this, the tattooed man prodded the lizard man on his side with the fork in his hand. Screaming, the lizard man fled to the other side of the table. Sighing at such an observation, the rust-haired man looked at Subaru with a shrug of his shoulders. Idra, sorry for all the racket, Schwartz. How's your body, Subaru? It feels okay. Same there, Idra, we're not badly hurt either. Thanks to you. After rephrasing this, the rust-haired man Idra bowed his head slightly towards Subaru. It was not just Idra. The squabbling tattooed man and lizard man, Whites and Hyun, raising their hands in surrender, both agreed with Idra by lowering their heads in Subaru's direction. Currently, Subaru was in one of the areas of the island open to gladiators, a large hall with tables and chairs that was generally used as a dining space. As soon as he appeared in the hall, Subaru was immediately grabbed by the three people who appeared, and was suddenly brought to one of the tables, being presented with the platter in front of him. Frankly, it was a dizzying, bizarre situation, yet, Subaru, by any chance, did you save this for me, Hyun? What else could it be? Ungrateful brat. Oh, Whites, don't say that like you're taking credit for it, I'll beat you up. Hyun, I didn't say that, and I'm grateful for what you did, damn it. Pointing to the pile of meat on the bone, Subaru had asked a question, resulting in the ensuing altercation. This could not be called a very smart way to show it, yet this seemed to be a sign of appreciation. For a feast like this to be served, Subaru became quite unsure about how the gladiators were treated. Subaru, it's like even though you make them kill each other, you let them have their fill of food? Cecilus, technically, it's not killing each other, it's a deathmatch, you know. Also, Gustavsson's policy is that should a gladiator die, it should only happen in the gladiatorial arena. Letting them die anywhere other than there'd only prove the incompetence of the management. So you can relax and enjoy your time here. Next to Subaru, who tilted his head, sat the fake Cecilus, who had pulled out a chair with great enthusiasm. Subaru thought he would reach for his plate, given his brazenness, but surprisingly, he did not. Instead, he filled a chipped cup from a jug and sipped water from it. Tanza, everyone, I believe that Schwartz-Summer has done the utmost great service. Therefore, we have decided to prepare a treat. Subaru, Tanza. Everyone, is that right? Tanza sat in the chair opposite the fake Cecilus, with Subaru in between, while in surprise at Tanza's words, Subaru looked at Idra and the other three. Idra nodded deeply at that gaze and said, Yeah, Idra, as I said before, it's thanks to you that we're all still safe like this. The night we survived the first Sparker, we were treated to a feast for the unit, and I thought it would be strange if you didn't get your share of it. Whites, for the record, I'm the one who suggested it. Hyun, hair, though I wasn't going to leave any for the brat. In turn, they told him why the platter of food had been saved for him. But at Hyun's last words, Tanza next to him tilted her head. Tanza, I wonder if that was the case. As I recall, I believe it was Hyun Summer who first said that he was uncomfortable eating with only those present. Hyun, huh? I didn't say that though. I don't know that though. Hey, you little bitch, I won't tolerate you saying unreliable shit like that. Idra, cut that out. Hyun. You can't beat Tanza. That girl beheaded the Guiltilaw. Tanza, I did indeed behead it. As Idra stopped him with a hand, Tanza bowed, and Hyun, who was unable to retort, concluded it with a gah, and gave up his attack as he turned his reptilian face away. So this was a token of appreciation from all of them, including the not-so-honest lizard man. Subaru, I'm grateful, I won't be shy at all about taking this meal then. Cecilus, oh, you are a really gluttonous eater. The way you show your generous acceptance is also terribly excellent, you know. Whites, don't overdo it and get a stomach ache. Subaru, don't worry. I may look like this, but I used to be a famous school food fighter who ate up all the school lunches of those who were absent. Getting milk from the kids who would not drink it was a piece of cake, and he also brushed his teeth before breakfast. That was Natsuki Subaru's battle style. The meat was cold and tough, but the dark seasoning was not that bad, so he couldn't complain. Above all, it was a treat that everyone had saved for Subaru, which was the best spice of all. Yet, as he watched Subaru bite the meat off the bone like that, Whites turned his pattern-covered face to the side and said, "No, Whites, don't get any creepy misunderstandings. It's not like I'm worried about you, Subaru, dash. So you're regretting the piece of meat you gave me now, or something, Whites? That's also a different kind of death match, Subaru." Whites' words were low and hushed, but the words resonated very profoundly with Subaru. Subaru almost dropped the meat from his hand, but fingers from the fake Cecilus caught it from the side and quickly stuck it in Subaru's mouth. Subaru, ugh, Cecilus, relax, you're going to choke. Besides, Tattoo-san over there was a little lacking in his words just now. Don't worry, there won't be a deathmatch anytime soon, Subaru, ugh. Is that right, Tanza? Correct. Currently, we have not received any notice of that yet. However, we do not know at what time we will be informed of a deathmatch. That is how it seems. After finishing off all the meat, leaving only the bone, and pecking the remnants on his plate, he looked at Whites. Listening to what the fake Cecilus and Tanza had to add, Whites nodded. Whites, that's what I said. Subaru, no you didn't. I thought they were going to make us kill each other soon. Idra, that's right, it's not that harsh a place. I heard it used to be handled in a way that Schwartz was concerned about, until the island's chief was replaced and the policy changed. Subaru, before the changeover. So since Gustav-san took over? Idra nodded in response to the question, as Subaru reached for the next piece of meat. In his mind, as he was reminded of Gustav's intense face, which did not reveal any emotion at all, Subaru puzzled over what kind of person he was. As soon as Subaru woke up and saw him, he was ruthless enough to suddenly throw him into Sparka. He had thought that he would be similar to the violent rules of the cruel Wallachian Empire, but from the extent of what he heard, it was not like the gladiators were immediately being forced into seemingly deadly battles. Subaru, or maybe they just like to do it slowly rather than all at once? Cecilus, you can see that I'm not just a do-on-a-whim kind of person. In fact, if Basu hadn't woken up, probably only these three here would be in the unit facing the Sparka. If that had happened, you'd probably have a much darker look on your face at this dinner party. Hyan, that ain't funny you know. In the first place, why the hell are you even here? The fake Cecilus laughed at Subaru's words, followed by Hyan pointing and barking back in his face. Indeed, if one were to ask, it was true. The fake Cecilus was the one who helped Subaru and Tanza get ashore on the island, but that was the only connection between the two of them. Idra, I have heard that every gladiator here joins a unit for Sparka at one time or another. After that, depending on their success, they may break up the unit depending on their performance, but your unit is. Cecilus, don't worry if it's about my unit. Everyone except for me has died, and fortunately I'm already a gladiator who gets individually allocated death matches. Subaru, what? Cecilus, I mean, I'm the strongest. No one can beat me, so you don't have to worry about me at all. Haha. Subaru and everyone else clammed up as the fake Cecilus slapped his knee. However, Subaru and Tanza's reasons for keeping quiet and the reasons for the other three men were surely different. For that matter, both Subaru and Tanza's were also a bit different at the core. Idra and others would probably consider the words of the fake Cecilus as a huge lie, while Tanza was suspecting that the fake Cecilus was actually related to the real Cecilus segment. Then there was Subaru, who was thinking that he may be the shrunken Cecilus segment, which, if true, then the fake Cecilus may still be the strongest even in this state. If so, it would be very advantageous to have the fake Cecilus on their side. Cecilus, you shouldn't do that, Basu. If you look at your opponent with such greedy eyes, you'll be scorned. Subaru, huh? Cecilus, a person with the attributes to stand on top and in front, they shouldn't have such an avaricious, pleading look in his eyes. It's entirely not in the least bit smart at all. so you should stop it. If you want to impress me, don't use words, use actions, resolve, and a treasured signature catchphrase. Saying this, the fake Cecilus advised Subaru, by taking 2 of the bones from his plate and crossing them in front of his face, forming them into an X symbol. Just as if he had been told something that seemed to read his mind, Subaru gulped down his saliva, and then, Subaru, you said it wasn't about words, but if a signature catchphrase is needed, then you need words too, right? Cecilus, that's true. This was quite sloppy. Out of all the people, just what have I done? With wide-open eyes, the fake Cecilus leaned heavily against the back of his chair and then leaned forward as if being pushed forward. Subaru stiffened as the face suddenly got close to him. Seeing that, the fake Cecilus's shaped his whole face into a massive grin. Cecilus, well then, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I've also got a lot of matters to attend to, people to talk to, and ways to pass the time, so I'll leave you here for now. Don't worry, I'll be in the other room next to you, so if there's anything you still need to talk about, you'll have to go there. Subaru, Roger. Cecilus, roar, yeah? I don't know what that is, but it sounds rather gallant. Well then, Roger. While making a slight misinterpretation, the fake Cecilus raised his hand and ran off before there was time to stop him. Although there was no reason to stop him, Subaru was shocked at the lightning-fast speed with which he had left. In actuality, he wasn't so much of a hindrance that he could be called an obstacle, as he just wanted to have someone around who knew the ins and outs regarding Gladiator Island. Subaru, well, it gets tiring hearing him talk about the information I want around 5 times. Tanza, Schwartz Summer, please continue your meal. Subaru, yeah, that's right. I've got to get my strength back. No matter what Gustav was thinking, he had no intention of staying quiet until the next death match was assigned. In the first place, he had no intention of staying here as a gladiator for very long. His goal was to take Tanza and get off this island today or tomorrow. Worst case scenario, they could become hostile to Gustav. However, if they did that, Hyan, what's going on? Schwartz, Subaru, I was just wondering if you guys were worried. Can you do this without me? Hyan, the hell are you talking about? You're not thinking of running away, are you? If that's the case, then return the meat. The meat. Hyan opened his big mouth to yell at the anxious-looking Subaru. Although they had every right to be angry, Subaru had people who were more important to him than they were. Should he consider leaving with not only Tanza, but also the other 3 together? Subaru, rather, maybe everyone on the island could escape. Tanza, Schwartz Summer, Subaru, sorry, I was just talking to myself. As you'd expect, that was just some rambling. It was a troubling idea that he couldn't let other people hear carelessly, even if he was just talking to himself under his breath. However, Whites, Idra, Hyan, and of course Subaru and Tanza were forced to come to the Gladiator Island even though they didn't want to participate in death matches here. If that was the case for the other people as well, then surprisingly, perhaps Subaru's idea was not as ridiculous as one might think. At least, that was just what Subaru was thinking. ? So you've finally woken up, kid? ? That Sparker the other day, that was hell of a big deal, you know. ? I screwed up by not going to watch it. I only got to hear rumors about this and that afterwards, man. People gathered around Subaru as he reached for the meat on his plate. The men who spoke to Subaru in such a friendly manner were all men who looked like they had a reason for being there even without a detailed explanation. He was sure they were all gladiators, newcomers to the Great Hall, and those who had been watching Subaru and his comrades from a distance gathered together, creating a bit of a buzz around Subaru. Subaru, you all are? ? Can't you tell? We're your precursors on this island. You guys had quite the hectic and not at all boring Sparker. The men started laughing around Subaru, whose eyes widened in surprise. Only, they didn't say it in a mocking tone, but in a genuinely complimentary way. Incidentally, surrounded by others, Idra had a forced smile, Hyan looked uncomfortable, and White sulked silently. ? That girl's entrance at the end was a sight to behold. She's a lot stronger than she looks. Tanza, thank you very much. It's all thanks to the grace of the one who loves me. ? Oh? I see. I don't quite get it, but that was a good death match. Not getting too deep into the story of Tanza, who gave a bow, were the perfectly open-minded large men. While they talked about how Subaru and his team fought in Sparka with their every gesture, but it's a big deal. That gladiator beast. That shadow lion's taken out a lot of units, ? If you guys had been taken out, I think the total number of units knocked out by that thing would have been 10. The recent Sparkas continue to be rough, ? That's surely what Governor Gustav wants. Once you are welcomed as a gladiator, you are treated well, as the entrance is the toughest part. The next show's gonna be scary. There was no shortage of topics to discuss as they raucously talked about the situation on Jinnenhive. Subaru nodded along, urging each of them to continue while he collected information about the island. It seems that after all, since Gustav became the island's chief, the policy here became much different from before. Also, that lion seemed to be rather strong, and Subaru and the others who won were now valued highly. Subaru, I see, so it was worth all the hard work on our part. Shows, you say? ? Yeah, we have regular shows here where nobles from all over the empire get together and make a spectacle out of our death matches. Sparka and daily death matches are all training for the real deal. Subaru, training? ? Dying during practice doesn't help. The governor knows that. If you work hard, you won't get any reprimands. Ah, there is an exception. Subaru, an exception? Subaru tilted his head at the sight of the strong, muscular man stroking his nose as if he was having trouble saying it. He was silent for a moment, then sighed deeply and continued. Strong gladiator, I hate to tell you this because you get along so well with him, but don't associate with that guy. Subaru, and that guy is? Thinking of the strong man's phrasing and the person who wasn't present, there was only one person who fell under this category. Subaru continued with a could it be? Subaru, you don't mean Ceci? If anything, he's following me. Strong gladiator, yeah, he seems to have taken a liking to you, but how much can you count on that? He only came here 20 days ago. Subaru, okay. Strong gladiator, at his first Sparka, he did nothing and watched as his unit was annihilated, and when his allies were gone, he effortlessly killed the gladiator beast with his bare hands. Subaru, strong gladiator, after that, every time he was asked to fight to the death, he would do it only after the other guys were dead. And, for some reason the name he gives out is General First Class Cecilus Segment. As he spoke, the strong man looked at the entrance to the hall with a mixture of heartfelt suspicion on his face and in his voice. The entrance that the fake Cecilus Segment had exited through just a moment before, and it was not just the strong face speaking directly to Subaru that had such eyes, save for Subaru's unit comrades, who did not know of him. The same held true for everyone present. He was a man who was friendly to Subaru, who had displayed his incomprehensibly narrative-driven brain to the point of having him fed up, who had tried asking Subaru, when he was dying, about his final will and testament, and who was fiercely disliked by the gladiators, who were living side by side with death. That is, strong gladiator, Governor Gustav and that death god are the central figures in the current Gladiator Island's irregularities.